We're now ready to talk about interviewing. Interviewing is one of the most important steps in this job finding process, and there are hundreds of different opinions about how to interview out there. And I'm not going to try to say which of those opinions are correct or incorrect. What I want to give you here is one of the fundamental principles that I believe underlies interviewing and how to guide an interview so that you understand what's going on and so that they understand what's going on and so that you can connect. In order to understand this fundamental principle, it grows out of this idea actually introduced by Jim Collins. Jim Collins is the author of a book called Good to Great. In that book, they did a study on lots of different companies who were extremely successful. And they compared them to companies that were less successful. And they tried to correlate what types of characteristics these different companies had, and especially what types of characteristics their leaders had. And this is one thing Jim Collins boil it down, and you should read his book. It's a fantastic book. Jim Collins really captured the essence of what an owner of a company is trying to accomplish. Okay, he says, get the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats. So Jim Collins paints this company as a bus that's headed somewhere, and he says the most critical thing that the driver of the bus, who is the owner of the company or the leader of an organization, the most critical thing that they need to be worried about is whether or not they have the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats. So if you can see it from their perspective, they're trying to accomplish something great. And their most important objective is to find the right people who are going to help them accomplish something great. Of course, they have goals and ambitions, and Jim Collins actually says that you shouldn't decide where the bus is going until after you've decided who is on the bus. He says who is on the bus is more important than where the bus is going, because if you have the right people on the bus, then that bus will naturally go in the right direction. So getting the right people is absolutely crucial. So you have to understand interviewing from this perspective, that the whole purpose of the interview, or the whole purpose of the job hunt in general, is that a company is trying to fill a position on their bus. They're trying to find the right person to sit in that seat on the bus. And so your job as an interviewee is to convince them that you are the right person for that seat. It's as simple as that. And all of the different theories about how to answer questions and what types of questions to ask and how to dress and how to act and all of those things really boil down to this fundamental principle that company is trying to fill an empty seat on their bus, and their most important objective at the time is to find the right person for that seat. That's all it is. So we're going to talk about a few things here, but what I want you, the main takeaway that I'd like you to go away here with is simply this metaphor, that you want to realize that they're simply trying to fill a seat. And the purpose of the interview now is that you've passed the resume stage, you've networked with them, they've seen your portfolio, and now they're serious about understanding whether or not you are the right person. And of course, they're most likely interviewing other people as well. So your job in that interview is simply to convince them that you are the right person. And we're going to talk about how to do that naturally. One thing I'd like to add before we move on is that in order to walk into an interview and convince someone else that you're the right person for the job, you need to be convinced that you are the right person for that job. And so hopefully through this process, through what you've done up to this point, compiling the portfolio, networking, having talked to people who work for this company, and having insight into this position, and hopefully you are convinced. Because if you're not convinced, there's no way you're going to convince someone else that you're the right person for the job. So if you're not convinced that this is the right job for you, maybe you need to do a little bit more homework. And frankly, you can use the interview as part of that process of finding out more about the company as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But you simply need to walk in there with some level of confidence that you could fill this position, and it would be a good choice for them, and it would be a good choice for you. And that's what this whole interview process boils down to.